Greetings and welcome to Cookery with Mason Storm. On today's episode, we're going to look at the Pampered Chef Deluxe Air Fryer. We recently obtained this and I thought I would put it through its paces. And so I'm going to make a rotisserie chicken and some French fries. I've already tested it out making dried bananas. So let's get into this. To begin with, we get ourselves a chicken. And this one's already tied at the legs, which is good. And I'm just checking to make sure there's no gizzard pouch inside. And then I stick the split, which is the rod used for rotisserie, through the chicken and apply the second clamp to it. The two clamps lock into the meat of the bird and make it so that when the rod turns, the bird turns with it. And they're kind of important that they're in good parts of the meat, that they don't just spin freely, because that can be kind of a bit of a problem, and then the bird doesn't turn and one side overcooks, the other side doesn't cook. Endless problems and quite the fiasco. But once we have the split installed, then we can use our black pepper and our salt to cover the bird and give it a little bit of extra flavoring. There's lots of other things you could use for flavoring it. You could even season the inside of the bird, but I'm just doing salt and pepper. Now I'm going to be using some string here, and the idea of the string is that when the bird starts to cook, the joints start to release and the wings might start flapping around in the breeze, and we don't want that to happen. So we tie the bird all down, that way it doesn't fall apart and we don't have limbs flying off of it as it cooks. So a little bit of string goes a long way, a couple of turns around it, tie it to a nice knot, and then we're all set to stick this thing inside the air fryer. Now the air fryer is a pretty decent size. I just have the spoon here so my camera would allow me to take a picture. And on the left hand side there's that little notch, and that's where the spit kind of sticks in, and that's where the motor is to make the thing turn. So we got to get the one end in there and then the other end on the other side, which is kind of like a blind holder. So it's only the left hand side that makes the thing turn. And when I was sticking it in here, my head got in front of the camera so you couldn't really see anything. That's why there's the big jump cut. But after lining it up, it went in fairly good. And then I'll just plug it in. And the controls on this unit are pretty good. So I just turn the knob till it goes to rotisserie. And then I just started it. Now I just left it at the default time of 45 minutes. Normally you select it and then you can dial in the time. But 45 minutes sounded reasonable to me. So I thought I'd try that and then check with a thermometer to see how it was at the end of it. And here we go with our thermometer test. This has been after the 45 minutes. And as you can see, I forgot to stick the drip tray in the bottom, so the entire counter is a little bit of a mess at the moment. But that's tomorrow's problem. And our temperature, we're not quite up to as done as I would like. So I'm going to put it back in and give it another 10 minutes to cook it a little bit more. I like my birds nice and well done, because there's nothing worse than, having it test in one place that it's good, and then you take it out and you're carving it up and it's not quite cooked enough, and because you've already taken it off the spit and you've got the thing half carved, you're kind of in a little bit of a dilemma how to cook it that last 5%. So it's always good to kind of overdo your chicken a little bit when you're doing a rotisserie. That, and it makes the meat come off the bone significantly easier. And now that our time has passed and the bird is done, I'm going to take it out of the air fryer now. It comes with this nifty little tool, this kind of U-shaped prong thing. I guess it's more of a Y shape. And you just put it underneath the bar and lift the whole thing all out at once. Perfect. And now I'm just going to tear the meat off the bone as best as I can while the bird is still kind of hot. I let it sit for a couple minutes so I could actually touch the spit without burning my fingers off. Then I'll cut the string off of it, and then I'll just do the old knife and fork, quick and dirty method of meat removal from the bird. Did this rather than the traditional carving method because it's really not worth the time and effort to do it that way. I just want to quickly get in there, tear it apart, and get eating, because I'm kind of hungry at the moment. It's good stuff too. And the thing that I really like about using the air fryer, especially with like the rotisserie like this, is like it cooked this bird fast. Like if I was baking this in the oven, it would still be in there probably like another hour at the temperature that I would typically cook a bird at. And look how steamy it is. This is just fabulous. This is exactly what you want in your rotisserie chicken. I was really happy with how the chicken turned out, but I figured I should try something else in this. It's got so many different functions. So I thought, why not make the old-fashioned French fries? In order to do that, I'm going to start with a bunch of potatoes. These are russet potatoes, and I'm just peeling them to take off all the skins. You really don't want to have skins in your French fries because they don't taste that great. Unless you're into that, in which case, go for it. You do you. And once we're done peeling all our potatoes, I think 2 potatoes should be enough for this size of machine. In fact, probably having a little bit smaller of a potatoes would be more ideal. It did kind of fill up a little bit too much, as you'll see in a little bit. Now I'm going to slice the potatoes long ways and somewhat thick slices. This will allow for really long French fries, which is something I wanted to test. Because compared to my Tefal air fryer, this one has a basket, so its cooking method's a little bit different. So I'm hoping that it cooks long French fries a little bit better than the Tefal, because it kind of crunches them all up to a certain extent. So the most efficient way to use that one is to cut your potatoes in nice little cubes and then cook them all that way, which, to be honest, is quite good because there's so much surface area and there's so much crisp factor. It's just great. So once all of our potatoes are cut in nice slices, I'm just going to lay them down and start cutting them the other way into long strips, and try to keep all the strips about the same size, and that will be our French fries. And it doesn't take very long to cut all the potatoes up into nice fry shaped looking fries, so then we can move on to the next step. So we'll get our basket out, and then we're going to transfer our potato slices into the basket like so. And I think this is about the right amount that this is supposed to hold. And of course we need a little bit of seasoning, so I'm going to add some salt, and then I'm going to add some oil to it just to kind of improve the cook factor of the crispiness. And as far as oil goes, I'm using avocado oil. It's a high temp oil, which I think is what you're supposed to use in these things, because you don't want your oil to smoke like crazy, or at all for that matter. And this is probably the non-standard method of oil application to a cylinder like this, but I thought I'd try it out and see what it did. And I got it in the bowl there at the bottom, so anything that drips out I can catch and doesn't make a mess all over the place. But now for the tricky part, and getting this thing back into the oven. Now all this was kind of shot out of sequence. I cut up the potatoes and got them all ready before the chicken was done. So then I just took the chicken out and then I stuck this thing in. But I had a really hard time getting it to be driven by the mechanical side and be properly aligned on the floating side. And I fiddled around with it for probably about 15 minutes trying to get it to line up, and as you can see here, it's not quite aligned right. It's sitting on top of the right hand side above where it's supposed to be, so it's not actually turning. And then I went to carve the chicken, and before I know it, the whole thing kind of cooked itself into one gelatinous mass, so that way even after I did correct it so that it would spin, it all kind of stuck together and it didn't quite cook right. So if I have one gripe about this machine, it's that it is very difficult to align the rotisserie portion, or the turning drum. It doesn't just slide in and then spin. It's like you got to put one side in and then kind of cam over the other to get it to kind of engage. If the thing's already hot from cooking something else in it, you really don't want to stick your hands in there too much. You don't want to bump the sides and burn yourself. So it's quite tricky to get proper engagement of the rotating piece, and as a result my fries are very substandard. This is actually quite disappointing. But I think next time, if all I was doing was making French fries and I put it in while it was cold and made sure it was aligned okay, they probably would have turned out far better. I don't have any footage on hand of using the dehydrator portion, but it was just a couple racks that went in, and I set the temperature and set the time, and it did its thing. That worked out really well. I might make a video of doing something in the dehydrator later, but that's just kind of my first impressions of the Pampered Chef multifunction air fryer. The footprint of the unit's quite large, and it does a whole lot of different things, and it does most of them pretty well. And I'm really happy with how my chicken turned out, and I look forward to trying other things inside of this to see what it can do. If you have any suggestions or things you'd like to see me make in this, just leave a message in the comments below. And please like and subscribe if you want to see more of my content. And until next time, stay awesome.